Hello, everybody. My name is Micah Pointer, and I'm going to be talking with you today about embroidery, but just the basics. How to get started, talking about some of the different materials you're going to be using, how to work with them so that you can get going on some of those techniques in the following videos. So, probably the important starting place are the threads you're going to be working with, or the flosses, as sometimes they are referred to in embroidery. And yeah, there's a ton of stuff to choose from. If you're passing by the embroidery section in Joann's or whatever craft store, they have just oodles of threads and flosses. They are sold by the skein, just like yarns. And this is kind of the standard DMC flosses that you're going to come across. There are some fancier ones like these metallic ones here, which are super pretty, but can be kind of annoying because they might be difficult to pull through the fabric, or the metal wrap on there might start to come apart or break down on you. The thickness can vary. Some of these right here are a little thicker, a little more rope-like, as you can see. There are those strands that are twisted together. But most of the standard ones right here, maybe you can see, they have different smaller strands that make them up, usually about 6-strand embroidery flosses. And depending on the project, really determines how many strands you're going to be using. Because if you're doing something that you want a really bold statement on, then you would use a lot of strands for it. If you're doing something a little finer, a little more delicate, then the fewer strands you would pull out from it. Usually in the work that I do, I use about 2 or 3 strands, and that really helps give a little bit more longevity because you're getting, hey, 2 lengths for the price of 1. So that's really cool. Most of these, as you can see, I've already kind of pulled through and worked with and just kind of wrapped around on itself. I'm finding out that that is now a bad idea because if you can kind of see, it tends to want to coil back up and really spring-like. So that's probably not the best way to go about storing these. Maybe just gently looping it back on itself and storing it away is the best way to treat these if you're looking to stash them for long-term storage. But either way, how you're going to go about separating these so that you can get ready for sewing them is that you're going to determine first how much you're going to need. Again, no more than from fingertip to nose. And I'm gonna say maybe let's do about a 2-strand. So you're gonna come down here and just gently sort of untwist them until they want to come apart from each other. If you can see that, kind of, maybe, I don't know. Pull out the 2 strands you're gonna be wanting to work with. That looks good. Grab some snips, give that a cut. And because this is kind of twisted up on itself, you can see, you're going to want to kind of gently coax them apart from each other, just kind of working down, pulling them apart and kind of untwisting them with your other hand. Yeah, it takes a little bit of getting used to, a little bit of a feel for it. But gently, you're going to start separating them out, because if you just start from up here and just pull straight out, sometimes if you're working with a little bit like this, you can just shoop right like that. Sometimes if you really get going, if you have a great big length that you're working with and you just pull them apart, they'll start to bind together and knot into each other the further down you go. So they're again just kind of gently uncoiling and then pulling and then uncoiling and pulling, just to make it a little bit easier, a little bit gentler on yourself. So now that we have our flosses selected, next thing we need to contemplate is the needle. My modest collection of embroidery needles, and there are many different kinds, again, depending on how many threads you're going to be working with and what kind of embroidery you're doing. In your kits, there should be a wider or a bigger eye needle. Those are going to be best for you because, again, there are multiple threads that you're going to be sewing with at a time. So I think I'm going to go with the moderate length needle just because this is only 2 threads that I'm working with. Just put that away for good use. Right there. And to thread it, just kind of gently with moist fingers, not wet, not sopping, just kind of work it into a little point. Grab that, and sometimes if you kind of work it between your fingers, you can flatten it out a little bit, and I don't know, maybe you can see that just it starts to poke through if you roll your fingers back and forth, and that can kind of help you get it pushed through the eye of the needle. Sometimes it might be stubborn and a few of the fibers make it through, a few of them don't, in which case it's really sad. Oh, I think that happened to me. That's okay. There again, we can just coax them together, work them into a point. And maybe, oh, almost. I think we got it. Hey, there we go. Okay, made it. Okay. Yep, so with that satisfactory threading right there, yep, just a few inches again coming out from the tail, and coming down here, you're gonna knot, just as though this were double threaded. You're just gonna, again, loop it through, pull it taut. For extra security, I'm just gonna double knot it. So that was once, this is gonna be twice. Ta-da! And now we have our thread selected, we have our needle threaded, the thread has been knotted, and now we are ready to start work on whatever project it may be. So I hope this was clear and useful to you. You're able to make sense of what we did and how you're going to do it. We're going to work in the coming videos on some different techniques that hopefully you will find interesting and edifying. So feel free to shoot me any questions if they may come up, and I wish you happy sewing.